we're definitely into it. And right, let's see if there's any news tonight. First of all, let's start with David. David from Grange. Anything from you, lovely?
No, sorry.
Okay. Drina from Chester.
No, no news. No.
Fraggle from the Lighthouse.
No, nothing.
Let the music play, Margaret. Margaret.
Hello?
Do you want to hear about a stunning revelation?
Is that Revelations 24 or Revelations 26?
Oh, I've lost it now.
Yeah, that's
It's going to
really
be one of
helpful.
those nights, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I was just looking on my phone at the latest archaeology news, and it was a stunning revelation about, oh dear me, it was in Turkey, and they found signs of metallurgy.
Ooh.
Much earlier than they thought.
Does this link in with last week's India?
No. Oh, I can't find it. It's gone.
Tamil Nadu we did last week. And we looked at the Tamil Nadu evidence going back to Iron Age, going back to 5,500 years ago. Or you're talking about the evidence from of Turkish steel making going back to 3,400 years ago. Yeah, we did it.
At the time of Göbekli Tepe, that old.
What? Wow.
No,
you need to find that.
No,
I'm trying to find it now.
Okay.
No. Yes.
No, I've lost it. It's
no.
gone.
Yes. Shut up. Hang on. Göbekli Tepe, right at the same time. Göbekli Tepe is meant to be dated to 10,000 years BC.
Yeah, well, it's something like that.
You have a look. I'll tell you about what I saw.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, go on.
I was just watching an old episode. I think it was series 10 of Digging for Britain, where they were covering the that new town, Roman town, found in Hertfordshire about 2 years ago, something like that. When it was a site of a leisure complex that was being developed, and they found it, and it's on what's the name of the road that goes across the Roman road?
Ermine Street.
No, the one that goes across St Albans to
Foss Way.
Foss Way, yeah. It was on the Foss Way, and I just felt it was really interesting that, you know, and because they were amazed that it was an unknown Roman town, and you're thinking, we've got loads of Roman towns. How come we don't know about this one? They hadn't actually found the town as such at that point. They'd found a graveyard, which they expected to have 20 to 40 burials in, and they got 60 to 80 burials so far.
80, yeah.
So it was clearly, and high status ones, it was clearly quite a big, you know, place. So, but I just thought, that's great, you know, because with all the modern technology, you think we know where everything is now, and yet one just pops up out of the blue.
Yeah.
And that's Geropolis, with the Iron Age site that we've already done. These things, these things are out there still, and
keep looking.
The one thing I've never really talked about this, but we'll go to you in a minute, Roger. I never really talked about this. We went to see one of the Saxon shore forts on the east coast, right? And I can't remember the name of it, but I'm just going to look this one up. This is Saxon shore forts. I'll just remember which one. There's a point to be made with what I'm about to say, so I just need to get the name. You were with me on that one, weren't you, Roger?
What?
Were you on the Colchester trip where we were?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was Bradwell, right? I think Bradwell, right? So in the middle of the fort at Bradwell, which has been half eroded into the sea, there's a church, right? So you go to Bradwell and you're expecting to see bits of Roman wall, and you can't see any, except you heard me going into the bushes. I take one of the gang with me, right? And I basically say, "Oh my God, we found a bit of Roman wall, which isn't actually, marked on the information boards." And then we were actually physically attacked by two ornithologists who said, "Oh my God, we don't want people to know about that Roman wall because, we don't want people like you here, blah, blah, blah." The other person got really upset and ran off, right? So then afterwards, I went to see the gang, and there was this guy who was mouthing off, shouting and screaming at me, right? And I went off and I got Chris, the driver, who some of you have met. And we went back down because muscly bloke, and we took photographs and made a little bit of film of this wall. Anyway, the point is there's this big chunk of Roman wall there, which nobody's allowed to see and nobody knows about because it's hidden under trees, right? So even some of the stuff that has been discovered and has been written about, very few people get to see it, and that's the same. This is one thing. We've mentioned Calivra Atrabatum a lot, right? That actually, when we do the Roman stuff, we'll be looking at Calivra Atrabatum, but we've mentioned Calivra Atrabatum a lot, and the wall going around Calivra Atrabatum is practically intact. It's 3, 4, 5 meters high in places, right? And it's basically around the whole thing. But you very rarely see any proper images of this, right? But it's a beautiful wall. And you've got to really go out there, and you actually got to find this stuff. I as part of my Roman Daily series, Michelle sat there and I say, "Oh, give me a name of a place in Britain." And she comes out with a name, and I start looking for any Roman sites. And I found this one place which is alongside a riverbank with this Roman wall that's these two. One's a chunky tower, right, which projects over this river in Herefordshire, right, and this beautiful Roman stonework, and it's about 3 or 4 meters in height, right, and there's like 2 images of it on the internet, and that's it, right. So even the stuff that we know about and is out there is very little known. So then when you go back to talking about Geropolis, you talk about the site that Andy's mentioned, that Roman site. What chance have these places got to get out there and make themselves visible? And I think the biggest problem that we've got now is the internet. The internet is really screwing things up. It's making places inaccessible. You type on the internet or name a load of places in Britain. Most of the places that I've actually looked at my little series online, you won't find. So the internet's very biased, and I would go back to reading books and looking at books anytime.
Well, this thing that I found is in Archaeology magazine, and it's called Grefilla, Turkey.
Good. We want to know about this. Andy wants to know about this. I want to know about this. We all want to know about this. So go for it. Well, just read out the first paragraph basically, and give us an idea.
Okay. Turkish archaeologists made a stunning revelation that suggests hunter-gatherer societies in southeastern Anatolia may have already been working copper 9,000 years ago, thousands of years earlier than expected. The discovery was made at the site of Grefilla in the upper Tigris Valley, which, like the more famous Göbekli Tepe, is known for its pre-pottery Neolithic period. Stone built, however, a scientific team recently examined materials from the site using advanced techniques such as X-ray, fluorescence spectroscopy, and flame atomic spectroscopy, and they determined that some copper fragments and vitrified material had been exposed to temperatures exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, indicating that the site's inhabitants had more advanced control of fire than previously thought and may have been experimenting with metallurgic processes. So there you go.
Absorption spectroscopy is something that we actually mentioned. We discussed that briefly in our live show actually on Saturday. Yeah, we do actually, and we got a little thing that we've done because this is all about analyzing metal, and to try and put this into perspective. There's two points with this. To see that copper is being produced 9,000 years ago means that it's already, somebody was already defining the metallurgical skill to make copper probably 500 years or maybe 1,000 years before, because you just don't discover these things overnight. No. So that's that's a key point to all this, and when you think about it, that's like the first copper usages in Britain, being able to get the smelting temperatures for copper in Britain is 4,500 years ago. So that gives you an idea. This is double the length of time that we have got access to copper, which
Yeah.
is which actually which does fiddle with my head a little bit, but it doesn't fiddle with your head. I keep going on about this. Cremated remains in Ireland, being able to cremate human remains in Ireland, and we got evidence of not one but several. Right, so they're cremating human remains in Ireland, a 1,000 years earlier than that date that you've mentioned in Turkey. So these are incredible leaps in humanity, and well, there's a couple of images tonight which key into this, which are going to blow your mind, but we'll get onto that now. Roger, anything you want to say before I crack on?
Yeah, there was something on the thing for Britain about coin making in the Tower of London.
Oh.
And a guy who had experimented with things had said that King Henry VIII, to feed his greed, basically, devalued the coinage by adding copper to the silver coinage. And it was interesting because he said it fooled the people, because very often it looked silvery. I think he put it in acid, which made it all appear completely silver, which is a nice little trick. But in time with wear, the service wore off, and it showed the red of the copper. So that was just a little trick he played, and it affected the country and inflation a lot of the time. So Henry VIII could do his thing. It was an interesting thing. He said that I'd wondered how they could analyze being an ex-metallurgist, the alloy contents. They went by, the colors in the flame, for instance, different things.
Yeah.
And if you add some lead to these things, it takes out other metals with the silver, leave the silver, and it gets absorbed into the crucible or whatever. All the
like the
different things.
lining,
What they were up to, this is the 1500s, so they knew quite a lot and got up to a lot of tricks. I'm not surprised at devaluing it. But yes, putting copper in, and lead went into taking copper out and stuff, or in quantities when they wanted to get pure silver, 98%. So it was interesting, and what they did, and they showed them manufacturing a coin, which was interesting, but I didn't know that putting in an acid would bring out, the silver color until it got wore off. It's just a service thing. Interesting.
It's the same as I know of a technique where you can enter you can put silver onto a bronze coin, and then you heat up this bronze coin, the bronze coin, and the silver almost sort of is absorbed into the bronze, and the silver is the predominant color when you look at the coin. But unfortunately, the silver coin itself doesn't shine like normal silver, right?
Yeah.
Which is which is something that that can be done, and we can't really understand all of these techniques, but metallurgists have been at this for a long time. But there is one thing with all of this, and this is also mentioned in the live show. We show at the end a coin of Howell Dda, and on this image of the coin of Howell Dda, we've got on the obverse, no, on the reverse. So the obverse is the front, the reverse. So on the reverse is the name of the moneyer, which is Gillis, and he was the moneyer for coins in Chester, in the 940s, 950, right? So Gillis's name is on the back of the coin, as big as on the front of the coin, which is Howell Dda, right? Yes. And the word Gillis is basically the mark of the coin. So Gillis is basically saying that these coins have got this amount of silver in them, right? They are this amount of weight, and if they are not this weight, right, I forfeit my life. So I don't know who's producing the coins back in at the time of Edward I. It's going to be the Royal Mint in London. So we're not, because there are other mints across Britain at the same time.
I think. Yeah, the Tower of London was making the money for a while.
And the Tower of London was actually making the money until the 1960s.
So I'm sorry, what was Gillis? Is that the name of the
Gillis was the moneyer in the year. Sorry. Gillis was the moneyer of these coins that were produced by the kings in that area, and including a coin or coinage for a Welsh king known as Hywel Dda. And these coins were produced in Chester for the Welsh king, right? Now, because he put his name on the coins, it means that the coin has a standard. It's not the king's name who has a standard, because the king could be corrupt, but the one who can't be corrupt is the person who puts his name on the coin to back up the value of the coin, which is the king.
Oh, okay.
And if the again, he's the one who's going to be beheaded, or he's the one who's going to be hung, if his coins are bent, right? The king's not going to be executed, right? But the money is going to be executed. But this is the point. So right, and actually, those that do turn up at my live show on Saturday will actually feel will actually touch a replica, an actual solid silver replica of this coin of Hywel Dda, which cost us 50 quid actually. And we circle it around the room, and it's managed to come back every time so far. Judith.
Were there any coins? Were there any coins during the time of Oliver Cromwell?
Yes, there was. Yes, there was. But this is a thing. Somebody wound me up earlier on. They were talking about Oliver Cromwell, and they said, Oliver Cromwell was at the Battle of St. Fagans, and Oliver Cromwell was in South Wales, and Oliver Cromwell went all the way around South Wales. And I basically said, look, right, Oliver Cromwell never came to South Wales in his life, right? But this is why Oliver Cromwell is in London. He needs to make sure that things are running properly. And obviously, yes, there was coins produced by the Commonwealth.
Wow.
That's what it was.
They use gunmetal or something.
I don't know about that. What I am looking up is just doing a fact check. Oliver Cromwell coins. I think these were Commonwealth coins. Yeah, there is a coin, Oliver Cromwell shilling, 1658. And we're joined by Anne now. So Oliver Cromwell shilling. Oh my God, does Anne know that we got an earlier start? I don't think she does. So I think she does actually. Yeah, but Oliver Cromwell did produce coins, and they're actually quite actually sexy coins. I'll show you one on the screen now. That is a coin of Oliver Cromwell.
And is that him?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
Looks like a woman.
Yeah, actually, it's got a carbuncle on his chin. If you look,
looks a bit like Napoleon, doesn't he? There.
Napoleon.
Yeah, he had these carbuncles everywhere. Yeah, with heavy lids under his eyes. So that's actually quite a good one. But you can. This is Oliver Cromwell crown, beautifully silver plated. I think that's actually a replica.
They're quite rare, I should think.
Oh yeah, it costs a lot of money.
Yeah, the original ones are. Yeah. Oh my God! Right, let's crack on. We've gone right off on one. And Anne, it's good for you to join us tonight.
Where's your friend?
Is Janice here yet? I was expecting Janice to join us tonight.
Right, she hasn't turned up yet.
Not yet. Okay. Right,
keep on to it. Andy's got the doodah. We want Janice on. There was supposed to be somebody else new joining us tonight as well, but they haven't turned up. But Anne, it's brilliant to see you. Right.
Thank you.
I would mention that the start time is 7, but we've been having a good old chat about loads of different things. So, well, keep an eye out. Andy, keep an eye out for Janice. Not Janis Joplin, because she died at 27
I'll
years
give her
old.
a call. I'll give her a call and see if she's on the way. Just a minute.
All right, then. Anyway, we're going to crack on, folks. So we're going to... I do believe my Fraggles turned up. Are you all right? Can you get in? Good. I'm expecting a cup of coffee now, so that's good. Right, if nobody's worked out what we're doing tonight, well, obviously we've been discussing a lot of things so far, so let's and requesting a drink if there is one. Right, so folks, what we're going to do, you've got all those images. We've got a lot of images to do tonight, right? A lot to get through, right? And actually, I'm not going to start. I'm going to start with this image, right? Now, I don't know who it was. One of you suggested Heuneburg, right? Which is an Iron Age site in Germany, right? And straight away, do you notice something odd about this Iron Age site?
2 parts.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what do you notice about it? It's not roundhouses, is
The
it?
shape of the
No,
buildings.
no.
It's like
Bingo.
London, all the
Bingo. So
Good
the
housing.
point is, somebody said, actually, I think it was Roger. He said, "Oh, can you compare the difference between Heuneburg and, for example, Maiden Castle?" Right now, we've already established that this is completely wrong. We've already established that this is not possible, simply because these roundhouses, there's going to be mud everywhere, right? There's not going to be the sanitation. There's no street layout. And we also know, probably by about 100 years BC, this site has been abandoned. Okay, this is Maiden Castle. And you can clearly see that there's a big difference between these round houses and oblong houses and what's going on here and practicalities. We don't have the archaeological evidence to say that Maiden Castle was dominated with round houses. We don't have the archaeological evidence. So wherever this reconstructed image come from is completely and utterly wrong. But it's this misconception of the Iron Age in Britain. And knowing full well that I'm here in West Wales, basically tramping around in a field covered in mud most of the time, right? For 5 months of the year, with sheep and chicken shit everywhere. Mind my French, right? Can you imagine 200 people living in those conditions in a hill fort? No, you can't, because it didn't happen, right? So obviously it gives another take on what these hill forts are about in Britain. This is one of my all-time favorite sites in Britain, and I know we've mentioned this. This is Old Sarum.
Yeah.
This is I love this site. I absolutely love it. I actually ended up having an argument here with the custodian when I was 8 years old, about the fact that there was a Roman villa here, and he said no, there was no Roman villa here. I went back and read my books. Yes, there was, right? But the one point is that this is Old Sarum, which is north of Salisbury, modern day Salisbury, right? You can see there in the left-hand corner a cathedral. Now, it's a big cathedral, and then they discovered Old Sarum was too small to accommodate a town, right? That's in the medieval period. But the banks and ditches around this were actually built in the Iron Age.
In case I wrote something, could have.
But the point is with all of this, understanding what's going on, is that Heuneburg is a very interesting, powerful site.
851.
She's given her the details. Good, she's got them.
Right.
Now, one thing about Heuneburg is that it's very, very different. It's completely different from anything that we would associate with Iron Age Britain. However, is that actually the case? Because when you look at Geropolis, and when you look at Caliva Atrabatum, and when you look at Stanwick, these are big sites. And Stanwick, Caliva Atrabatum, and Geropolis in Dorset, these are localities that, even though they had roundhouses, were developing into places like this. So Heuneburg itself is an amazing site, which pushes our imagination into a different direction. because I keep saying, and this is fact now, with the archaeological evidence, that if the Romans had never ever invaded Britain, we would have developed towns and cities anyway without them. We would have realized that we need sanitation. Mind you, lots of Roman towns and cities really didn't have sanitation in Britain, right? Not many of them did. You know, when you look at the great sort of town stroke city of Caerwent, it's not got much in the way of sanitation. And by the way, Janice has just joined us, so that is absolutely brilliant. So we'll say hello, Janice. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I've actually managed to get in at long last.
They're brilliant. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
So hello. So what we're doing, we're actually at the Place de Resistance of looking at the Iron Age, and we're looking at the a German site called Heuneburg. And I was just saying that what we're seeing in other localities is that the Iron Age is really developing in a completely different way than what we were taught at school. In such a different way that we're starting to understand the Iron Age very, very differently. And this is one thing that we're aiming to sort of continually do, re-educate ourselves about this wonderful period. And we're actually coming to the end of the Iron Age. So let's try and have a little look at some of these images. And now let's go back to the beginning of these slides that I said I wasn't going to do straight away, but I'm going to do them now. And what the image that I'm just about to show you does not look like an Iron Age village or an Iron Age town, but there it is. That does not look Iron Age, does it?
No.
But it is. That is what they've managed to work out as being an Iron Age town.
In Britain?
No, in Heuneburg.
Oh, okay.
Now, but the point is, well, I'm glad you said in Britain, right? Because maybe this might be some of the evidence that might be developing in our mindsets when we look at the archaeology in Iron Age Britain. Maybe when we're thinking about those vitrified forts, those forts that have been fired and burnt and the stone has melted, for example, in Scotland and elsewhere, and the beloved Huddersfield, as this came up from Judith, right? Maybe that heating up of the stone is part of a process to make something that was very, very different than what we think it is. Now, this looks like a medieval a town, but it's not. It's an Iron Age town, and even the reconstruction there, they've gone through the detail of having these oxen carts with these sort of typical Iron Age sort of yokes and so on. The typical Iron Age, but you're looking at this and thinking this is too far-fetched to sort of try and get to grips with as being an Iron Age site, but we're opening our imagination and we're opening our minds. So the first note of what I've got in front of me tonight, as I delve into my little notes here, if you actually, the first thing, if you type in Heuneburg, which is Heuneburg into the internet, right? The first thing that you come across is something called the reconstruction of the Heuneburg hill fort. Yeah, again, it's a hill fort. There you go. And this is on a site called World History Encyclopedia. And it says a reconstruction of the late Iron Age hill fort in Heuneburg, Germany. Now, I'm struggling with this because I'm really struggling with this because of what we hear from Roman historians, right? So we're talking about the Teutoburg Forest, the massacre of Varus's legions in the Teutoburg Forest in the year I think it was 9 AD, wasn't it? But you're thinking that they supposedly were going to cross a very backwards, barbaric civilization, but Germany wasn't that at all. This is something that the Romans were coming across when they were hitting, as we would call it, modern day Germany today. Now, this site originally started off as a hillock, which was they put a ditch around it, possibly around 3,500 years ago. And then the site was sort of abandoned in the Bronze Age. And then what they did, they started building something about 500 years BC, which is 2,500 years ago. And what they started to do is they started to build a mud brick wall around this place, right? And you're thinking, well, oh yeah, we don't have mud brick walls in Britain of any description, but how wrong can we be there? How do you identify a mud brick wall in the archaeology? It's really, really difficult. You might actually just find a load of earth piled up and but that could have been a mud brick wall in Britain at one stage. But what they've started to do is they've really started to understand that there's something very, very different going on with this site. Now, around towards the end of 500 years BC, this site itself, let's bring that word in. This site itself can be no longer classed as an Iron Age hill fort, right? It's classed as an Iron Age town known as an oppidum, right? Now, I've mentioned that word oppidum a few weeks ago. I mentioned that the oppidii of Duropolis, which is near Dorchester, in Dorset. I've mentioned Caliva Atrabatum, which, as you know, is southwest of modern-day Reading, Silchester. And I've also mentioned Stanwick, which is way up there in the north. And I've just mentioned that these sites are oppidiums, the oppidii of that's been popularly identified across the Iron Age in Britain. We mentioned earlier on, I think it was a really valid point, and there's lots of valid points to be made at this minute. Andy mentioned earlier on, or Drina, or whoever mentioned it, my grey cells are not really brilliant at the sometimes these days. But what have you mentioned about this Roman fort that had been found in Hertfordshire? Is that correct? And that was in. Andy said that was in Digging for Britain, wasn't it, Andy? Hopefully, I got that right.
Bishop Stortford, was it?
I don't know. Anyway, the point is, right, just focus on the issue. If archaeologists can miss a Roman town with stone walls and stone buildings, and a big ditch around it, right? We're going to miss an Iron Age town that's made with an earthen wall around it, with buildings that are principally made of earth and timber. We're going to miss it. If we're going to miss a Roman town made of stone, we're going to miss something in Britain that's just made of earth, right? Because naturally, when you even look at the reconstruction, there's no stone there. You don't need any stone. It's all made of earth, stone, and start again. It's all made of earth and wood, right? That's basically what it's made of. So this site itself, this wonderful all-encompassing site, this site that really sort of challenges the understanding of what the Iron Age is about. And actually, somebody did it this evening, didn't they? They Drina, good old Drina, talking about the Copper Age possibly beginning a lot earlier in Turkey, which I would say the interpretation of the article she read out probably goes back to 9,500 years ago, right? Which is a lot, or maybe 10,000 years ago, which is well over 5,000 years before our Copper Age, right? So all of these things are being challenged. All these old ideas about archaeology are continually being challenged. So what we can think about is that we've got this one stage. It's a clay mud brick wall, and then suddenly you've got the stone wall encircling this site. It clearly looks not Iron Age. It clearly looks Roman, but what do we know, right?
Yeah,
and it's it's thinking about this. You're thinking there would have been watchtowers around this thing, and some of these were built with mud brick and timber and so on. The only thing that was stone around this was the wall. most of it was earthen banking and so on. The buildings were earth and wood, as I explained earlier on. So none of this is really going to leave any much of a trace. But in regards to our examples in Britain, as I said, earth, wood, wattle and daub isn't going to leave much trace in the archaeology. But back to this site, Heuneburg, these rectangular timber buildings being built inside. And again, looking at this reconstruction, I know it's only reconstruction, right? But there's some of the reconstructed buildings. There they are.
Romanesque.
Actually, Roger, if you just waited a second, the interior layout of the settlement was inspired by classical Greek cities. Obviously, if they're establishing these buildings, I'm struggling trying to work this out, but if they're establishing these buildings 500 years BC, 400 years BC, 300 years BC, these are incredibly early. These ain't even Romanesque because the Roman world's not really challenged anybody else at this point. So these are classically in the tradition of the Greek world, a testament to Mediterranean architectural influences which had begun permeating, penetrating, dominating, influencing, guiding the hand of this part of Europe. However, let's just challenge that again. We're looking at building towns and cities in Britain. Are we really being influenced by the continent? So there's always that argument: are we being influenced by the continent? Where are the influences? What is exactly going on? So I'm finding this subject absolutely fascinating, and I think it may have been Roger who said, "Why don't we look at this site?" Or one of you did, and this site itself, as we look at those images, that just typically not Iron Age. So Heuneburg, again, Heuneburg, this wonderful hill fort by the River Danube, and in the south of Germany, close to the modern borders with Switzerland and Austria. Obviously, as a place, Germany didn't exist then. Germany didn't exist until the 1870s, right? Switzerland, all of these places didn't really exist. Thank you for that. All of these places really didn't exist in name or place. However, to give you an idea, it's the southern part of Germany by the Swiss and Austrian Alps, and is considered to be one of the most important early centers for the Iron Age in Europe. Now, if we look at some of these, apart from the fortified citadel, there are extensive remains of settlement and burial areas spanning several generations, actually over hundreds and hundreds of years. Now, again, just guiding ourselves through this to get an idea where Heuneburg is, there it is. Now, if you look at my notes, it says main materials used, the stone wall around the outside, but most of the material is wood and earth, right? And it's very, very likely, right? It's very, very likely that as this is developing into the 400s, right, BC, it's very likely at some time this site may have actually been abandoned well before the Romans got here. So that's one school of thought, and then it starts to make you wonder: lost technology, lost ideas, lost civilizations, lost ways of being civilized, and whether this was or did exist at the time of the Romans heading into this part of Germany, because it had been certainly here by about AD 10. The magic of what's being created in the Iron Age, and we've got some really nice we've got a couple of nice sort of plans. This is actually a chariot burial. This is actually from 1962, and again a chariot burial. So we're typically bringing these people into objects and things that we might find in a British sense. And going back to this, that river that Heuneburg is alongside is the river Danube. And the one on the left is the river Rhine. So, but again, Heuneburg, you've got to sort of go over the. Maybe it's true about these people being influenced by peoples, for example, from that part of the Mediterranean. Now, getting an idea, there's lots of these barrows. We just sort of gently, and this is a sort of nice one, really. So the fortified citadel measured 300 by 150 meters, which isn't a massive area. I know how 150 meters is. One of our main fields in West Wales is 150 meters long. It's not a big area. So Heuneburg itself was established as a town, as an Iron Age town. Heuneburg and its surroundings with the Hallstatt period archaeological sites. Now, the word Hallstatt is something that you might actually come across in your history books, right? Because there's Hallstatt. And what this refers to a development within the Iron Age of advanced technology and advanced people, advanced living, advanced metalworking. That's known as the Hallstatt period. Now, but it's something that I don't really use when I'm looking at archaeology, but it's well worth a punt. But if we go back to this image, you've got Heuneburg there, and Heuneburg itself is 40 meters above the Danube, so it's perfectly placed. So that gap in the middle is actually the River Danube, and not really understanding what this stuff is in the River Danube, known as Betel Boodle, which indicates that it's smack bang in the River Danube. There's actually archaeological remains. That might be because the river's moved or whatever. Not really understanding that, but Heuneburg itself, really close to the River Danube itself. Now, during the Iron Age, the Heuneburg is thought to have controlled a surrounding area over. Now, this is really interesting, right? This is odd, right? It controlled an area of 390 square miles in area. This was a territory. This was a people that would eventually be the benchmark for what everybody's doing in the Iron Age. You know, these small little territories here and there. You know, the Iceni, the Jabuni. You know, the likes of the Juratrigi. These sort of territorial people, right? But that's not even in Britain yet, right? This is there 500 years BC, 2,500 years ago. So what we've got a developing settlement landscape with these indications here. Of a landscape that's got lots of settlements, hamlets, not cigar mind, you know, hamlets and in villages, roads, cemeteries, and gathering places, which is rather interesting. So if we're gonna give this and look at that there, we've got this really nice little table here which sort of indicates the chronology of this site. For example, we've got this site at Heuneburg has been occupied from the Neolithic period. So it goes into the Middle Ages as well. And smack bang in the middle there, in this Iron Age period, right, you can clearly see that wall. Right, they're doing the big stuff, the big defensive wall around this in the Iron Age. But later on, above and before it, you know, there's other things going on. So this is sometimes referred to as the oldest city north of the Alps, and has been identified, as a city that maybe Herodotus wrote about. Herodotus was writing in the year 400. Between 484 and 425 BC. So obviously he's not going to be writing when he's born. So roughly somewhere around 450, Herodotus writes this: the Istros River arises among the Celts. Obviously, the Romans are referring to these people as Celts. We don't need to get mixed up with what we're saying with Iron Age Britain. These are the Celts of Europe, and the police of the Pyrenees. He's referring to another river, the police of the Pyrenees, cutting Europe across the middle. So, in other words, the Istros River is that identifying as the Danube, for example. It is identifying as the Danube, and the point is with all of this, Herodotus, this Greek writer, is actually writing about Heuneburg. Isn't that great? So the ancient Greeks knew about this great place, this great citadel, this expansive landscape of rich culture in the Iron Age. Very, very, very different. And again, looking at that, thinking, this is very different. This looks very, very medieval, but it's not. It's an Iron Age landscape. Some of these reconstructions are just too personal. If you know what that term means, they're just too perfect. But again, thinking about this site, discovering, understanding it, and let's sort of look at when this site sort of comes to us, and we'll look at some of the other stuff that we haven't done, but just sort of blend this into our minds. So the discovery and excavation of this site. So the site was first noted in the 1820s. In 1882, Edward Paulus recognized its importance and correctly identified it as a prehistoric fortification. So it's first thought of in the 1820s, but it's then recognized in 1882 by Edward Paulus. And he basically, now this is quite an easy mistake, I'm sure. Deep breather. He made a misidentification. When he was looking at the archaeology, obviously it didn't look like this when he excavated it. He basically said that this is a medieval fortress. So everybody thought, right, it's a medieval fortress, right? And that's what it is, right? It wasn't until years later that people started excavating at the site and actually realized, actually it's Iron Age. It's actually a little bit before the medieval period. And also what they did know, however, was that some of the burial mounds that they had been digging into within this rich landscape contained prehistoric remains. And nobody had actually really looked at this site and actually understood its true value in the chronology of the archaeology, being that this is actually Iron Age and not medieval. Obviously, they're doing stuff here in the medieval period later on, but they're not building this stuff. They're doing something very, very different. So again, thinking about this, shaping this, understanding this, putting this in with the archaeology, and painting the proper picture. This site having been sporadically excavated at the Citadel site, the site which overlooks the landscape. So if we get an aerial view of this now, and let's go, where's my aerial view? There it is. There it is. It doesn't look like an incredibly large place at all, right? But this is the site. It's not a large place at all. As I said, it's not much bigger than our biggest field here. Now, what they've done, they systematically started to look at this site in the 1920s and the 1930s, and obviously, that building there represents a reconstruction, and those buildings over there represent a reconstruction of what they believed the site looked like in this wonderful Iron Age timeline. And you can understand why somebody had actually got the dates wrong for this site. You can really think and understand that they've got things wrong, because it looks medieval when in fact it's not. Now, there's various mounds, and they examined one or two of these mounds. And there was a mound here called the Homme Michel mound, which they undertook a systematic excavation program from 1950 all the way through to 1979. Now, what I'm not finding is this site being contaminated by Ahnenerbe SS archaeologists from the 1930s and 1940s, but it's quite remarkable that if you put this into the time frame of this, be very careful with what I'm saying now. The Ahnenerbe, as I've mentioned before, was the on the 1st of July 1935. Heinrich Himmler said that all archaeologists in Germany had to become SS officers, and they had to work for this new archaeological organization called the Ahnenerbe, which was to prove that Germany was the superior race in Europe. And even though the pretext was entirely wrong, when you come across Heuneburg, you are coming across something that's highly advanced. So let's not say the SS were right in making their ethnic statements, but what you do find in Germany, nevertheless, is this archaeology that tells us that the Iron Age was highly advanced within Germany, nevertheless, right? Luckily, the Ahnenerbe didn't get their hands on this site because we wouldn't hear the last of it, would we? So since 2003, Heuneburg is one of the foci of a multidisciplinary research project on early Iron Age Celtic centres by the Deutschland Froskud Scrumben Scriben Maskenskraft. I've got that wrong, but there's an organization, and what they're doing, they're continually excavating this site since 2004. And whereas excavating something like this would have been very, very dangerous in the 1930s, and nobody would have believed the research of the German archaeologists. But obviously, as it's been done, the work has been done, that most of the later work to really understand this site and put this into history has been done after 1945. It makes this archaeology extraordinary, extremely extraordinary, that these buildings are possibly being developed not just by 500 years BC, but maybe these buildings, or like these types of buildings, are being constructed 650 years BC. So we've got these incredible buildings, which again, I'm looking at these reconstructions and I'm thinking, I can't get to grips with this, right? I don't understand this, right? And one of the things, hence why archaeologists got the site and the understanding of the date in this site wrong, was because after the site had been abandoned sometime in the Iron Age, maybe well before the Romans had got into the area, right? When in the medieval period they started looking at this site, right? It would have been probably ready to use. You know, we've got these massive banks and ditches around here, right? And it's basically, you know, what's going on here, that type of thing. And so this is what lots of people would have said when they looked at this site. Now, as you can see this view, and if these buildings are there and they're flowing with this well-organized landscape, again, I'm struggling trying to put this into the order of what I know. And what I don't know, but what you've got is a landscape that's got lots of barrows and burials, not just from the Iron Age, but there's lots of barrows, and burials, mounds from the Bronze Age, and you've got this wonderful Neolithic evidence. Obviously, these are Bronze Age mounds, right? But again, trying to shape this, trying to gather this in our minds, trying to understand this, it is quite extraordinary. So, and what is also extraordinary is that in this Bronze Age, where there's these mounds, again, they're building big mounds in the Bronze Age in Germany as well. They, in this Bronze Age, about 1,400 years ago, they've already got big banks and ditches and wooden walls, and they've got field burial mounds, and the site's abandoned rather than set alight, right? And that's really, really interesting. So people moved away. They moved away sometime in the Bronze Age, maybe 3,000 years ago, and then they're back again. 2,000. Start again. I need to get those dates right. So they abandoned the site about 1,100 years BC. Sorry, I got my date wrong a second ago. 1,100 years BC. And then the site was then abandoned and probably reoccupied roughly around 700 to 650 years BC. So 700, 600, 2,700 years ago and 2,650 years ago. So that's 700 years BC. So again, what we've got is that this site is extremely interesting to try and understand where it links in with, say, for example, the Danube. Now, I'm going to say that this site is exceedingly different from anything else that we've seen. It really, really is. But there is one similarity between this site and our sites in Britain. That our sites in Britain, if you can remember, folks, there are lots of burial mounds associated with our hill forts in Britain. Maiden Castle, for example, which is a really good example, where you've got these mounds actually smack bang in the middle of Maiden Castle, but nevertheless, it's used as an Iron Age landscape as the Iron Age develops away from the Bronze Age. And when we were looking at this and when we were studying this in the past, similar sites, I think the question is, are the defenses, are these, are you going to, is that really going to be really defensible? How accurate is that reconstruction, right? There's a thatched roof on it, right? And this is, it's assumed that this site, when it was eventually abandoned, suffered a major destruction, followed by a second flourish and a further destruction in the 400 years BC. So the site is continually changing, continually developing, and it's the conjunction, and thinking about this as well, that if we go to what there is, the conjunction of the fact that there's these buildings here and across the landscape, these elaborate burials, we've got evidence of advanced specialist craft production. The burials, as I said, are truly elaborate to take lots of this craft production into the afterlife with those interred in the burials. The trading of valuable, important goods classed the Heuneburg site as a site that is very, very different and very, very special. So after the Iron Age is finished, well and truly over, and by what's going on when the Romans are actually heading into the likes of Germany, the site is not really permanently used again. Right? It's sort of temporary used. Again, looking at that, it doesn't fit in. It I struggle to try and make this fit in with the normal archaeology that we see, and obviously 40 meters above the Danube, which is on the right, which makes that bit naturally defensible, was the center of high status occupation. And this again is something that stretches out across the landscape, and lots of changes with this site. This is just one look at the site, and this wonderful plateau, and the sense of this wanted to fit in with the normal Iron Age ideology where wood and earth is used, wood earth walls, wood earth buildings, and obviously the wood earth walls being replaced with stone, but the rest of the buildings are the earth and wood, ties in with the convention of these backwards Iron Age people, in the eyes of the Romans. But for us tonight, these people are a lot more than that. They are people that are exporting their knowledge into a site that is imbued with a change of our understanding of what we once knew about this Iron Age. Now, when archaeologists are excavating, for example, in Britain, we don't get this type of understanding or level of archaeology. Most of it's been plowed or destroyed or and so on. But they're really starting to understand this. So as they're excavating at the site, what you do have initially is then the walls replaced sort of in a stone way. But initially there's a limestone foundation, right, which you can clearly see. It's a limestone foundation. So they're very aware of this, right? Now, the people who are actually building like this are actually the Romans. But these Iron Age people seem to get there first. Remember, Rome itself is a concept. Romulus and Remus, in the foundation of the city, ab urbe condita, in the year 750 years BC, this site is being already developed. Rome itself is a little contaminated locality with a couple of houses, and it's not Rome yet. Rome's not going to develop until around 200 years BC, and this site, its high days have already come and gone. Right, when Rome is itself starting to become the great city, well, the Iron Age, the German Iron Age, have got this. So what we've got this limestone base, and we've got this sun-dried mud brick wall above it, which is 4 meters in height, probably topped by a roofed walkway, thus reaching a total height of 6 meters. The wall was clad with bright white lime plaster. Now we've got evidence of that, regularly renewed. Now this is a point. Whenever you're using lime, you've got to regularly renew it every single year. And this was necessary to prevent the northern weather from eroding what's underneath it, i.e. the unbaked mud brick. These are sun-dried mud brick. Now, there is one thing about this. When you're talking about sun-baked mud brick, there's two issues with this. People who are using unbaked mud brick are people in Mesopotamia, and people in ancient Egypt, and people, for example, in Turkey. The Greeks are using stone, and actually fired brick, right? And eventually the Romans would do the same. Now, but this also points at cob walls, right? Now, that's a really interesting thing. When I was doing my Leicester University degree, we had a whole section about cob walls, riveting reading. Well, it was, because we used to have these down in Wiltshire. I don't know how many of you have actually have been down to Wiltshire, but when you head on the if you're as if you're coming from London, which is not the way you would come, because you'd have to go through Swindon and go down and whatever. But anyway, the point is, when you go to the likes of Avebury, let me get this right. So you've got Avebury in the north, and if you go south of Avebury, right, and you head towards West Kennet Longbarrow, before you get to the turning for Avebury, on the left there's a wall which has got a thatch on it, right? That wall is mud. It's a cob wall. It's a rammed cob wall. So what you do, you get you basically create a wattle frame, right? And you put mud in there, right? Earth and all sorts of crap, anything you want to chuck in there, right? Statues of Lloyd George, anything you name them, not the statues of Lloyd George, you're going to keep them naturally. And you're going to ram them in there. It's cobbed ram wall. You're going to ram it and 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 ram it. And then what you're going to do, you're going to put a thatch on it, right? That wall is believed to be over 600 years old, and it's made of mud because the thatch has been renewed. If you go, there was this lady that met down there, and she invited me back to her garden. No, nothing happened, Roger. She invited me back to her garden, and this young lady, she said, "Oh, do you want a cup of tea?" So I sat in the garden, right, and she said, "Oh, do you know what my house is made of?" And I said, "What?" She said it's made of mud. I said, "You what?" She says it's made of mud. It's not made of stone. It's not made of clay, right? It's made of mud. It's a rammed mud wall. And there's a wooden framework inside supporting the roof, and we've got to lime wash it every year, right? And it's a mud wall. Right. The reason why I've gone off on a tangent, right? The reason why I've gone off on a tangent, right, is that you can prepare and create a perfectly advanced locality, right? For example, in Britain, anywhere in Europe, right? But obviously, as the years go by, because it's been made of mud, right, and because the thatch is now blown away and rotted away, right, then that's just going to dissolve into the earth and become part of the normal landscape. It's quite easy that there could be places like Heuneburg in Britain, right? But unfortunately, because it's made of mud, it's just dissolved away. Right, so can you imagine a tower protruding? For example, you've got these like indications of towers protruding. There we go, outwards from the wall at intervals. It must have been widely visible in the area. So what you're going to do, you're going to approach this from the westerly direction, as if you're going towards the Danube, right? And these would be widely visible. And one thing that they would be widely visible is the fact that these would be whitewashed. And then, okay, they're not being whitewashed because you want to show off, boys, girls. They're being whitewashed to preserve the walls. That's why they're being whitewashed. You know, when an archaeologist comes along, like me, yeah, every time, and we say they whitewashed a castle wall so people could see it for miles around, or they whitewashed one of these sites, you know, these earthen banks, they whitewashed them and then they put a thatch on them, right? They whitewashed them, right, to show off. No, they didn't. They may have, yeah, in one or two localities, but they whitewashed them to preserve the walls. That's what they're doing. They don't give a damn what people, you know, or it's white. You whitewash it because that's the best color to use, and lime whitewash. Lime is white, right? It's not puce, right? It's not any other color. It's white, right? And even if you stain it with oxen blood, right? It's the oxen blood is going to drain away, so it's going to white wall. So no other mud brick structures are known from Celtic Central Europe at this time. We don't know. We haven't found them. It is generally accepted that this structure imitated contemporary walls in the Mediterranean region. Now, what they're saying, what they're saying, to give you an idea of what's going on at this site, and sort of as we, hang on, let's just get us one of the mound. Oh, this is lovely aerial view, the landscape. There it is. You see the reconstruction there, the white one there. It just does stand out. When you look at it, it's actually, you know, it's only 4 meters tall. Yeah, it's only 5 meters tall, 6 meters tall maximum, right? It might stand out, but if you've got trees in the way, nobody's going to see it anyway. So are they doing it to show off, or are they doing it for practical reasons? You don't want wolves wandering around this place if you're surrounded by forests and woodland. So What they're saying is that what they're saying is that these walls may have lasted 70 odd years, 80, 100 years before they had to be replaced because of subsidence. They're saying so the walls were renewed. But for that 70 years with the whitewashing, it kept the wall going for quite some time. Right. They've got various dates. One of the dates, the major karma dates that they got of one of the destruction periods of the wall, as in is in 530 years BC. But the site was rebuilt, and it's referring to when you go back to one of my reconstructions. There we go. Look at that plan. They're saying that the fortification had two monumental gates, one to the west, giving access to the outer settlement, and another to the east, probably to a steep road leading directly to the Danube. Now, as this is, well, what they've done, this is a LiDAR image, right? So what they've done, they've added the archaeology, they've added the white buildings on to indicate, this is what we're seeing sort of in LiDAR, right? And they've reconstructed this, right? But what we've got is that there is the actual access to the Danube, for example, and the harbourage associated with the Danube. So I think the point is to have a break soon, and I don't really want to go too much beyond 9 o'clock. So I want us to finish about 9:15, but I do understand that a few of you, different things going on. But let's just read this bit out here. So the citadel, this town, this fortress, whatever you want to call it, regular system of streets and houses. It's regularized streets and houses, right? Now this dates back to at least 600 years BC, after which the dwellings they crammed more buildings in there. So as they're able to cram more buildings in there, it sort of indicates to us archaeologists is that they've managed to get issues of sanitation and all the rest of it sorted out. At all times, the Heuneburg houses are of remarkably large size and elaborately compared to any other contemporary sites. So the uniform buildings probably served as dwellings and workshops. Again, this is what we're seeing in the archaeology. There is evidence for an active metal industry, which we've already mentioned, including a bronze workshop. And again, all this about the workshops and how this all goes together. And they think, for example, there's evidence that maybe there's a very large house was built in the southeast corner, which may be associated with a local ruler known as a Heron House. A Heron House. The Heron House is the home, the dwelling of a local ruler. So Heuneburg yielded many finds, marking it as a rich site. So we'll look at some of the burials after the break, actually. And so the Heuneburg yielded many finds, marking it as a rich site, operating both as a local centre of production and as a hub for local distance trade. These included a full bronze workshop. A high proportion of Greek vases were found here. Greek vases, Greek vases, not Greek vases, Greek vases, pottery. And they're finding this stuff here, these trade objects, this Greek stuff, indicating a large amount of stuff which was actually invited in. They actually found evidence of tin and amber at the site, muchly exotic. And there's also a local tradition of producing painted and decorated incised or stamped pottery, which, to be honest with you, is something that we're not doing in Britain. If this dates from about roughly 530 years BC, we're not doing anything like this for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So this is why this site is so unbelievable. And we'll look at some of the cemetery stuff after the break, which is what we're going to do, and maybe think about the interpretation of this site and try to really understand it. Hopefully that we've got time to do that. So what we're going to do is, before we have a break, I'm just going to mention, if if the likes of Janice and Anne can stay at the end for a little chin wag. But we haven't finished yet. We're gonna take a break, and we're gonna have a 15-minute break, and that'll be fine. So right, I'm not gonna bully Janice and say, have you got any questions, right? But what we will do is ask Margaret. Have we got any questions, Margaret?
Well, that area, I'll notice the names Laten and Hallstatt, which are well known for their Bronze Age pottery, and
Yes.
also for the extensive, very ancient salt mines. Is there any kind of connection to this
Yes.
citadel and all of that going on?
Yeah, we've done the salt mine stuff, haven't we? Which was absolutely fascinating. All that salt being exported. We even did a lecture on that. This is there's no coincidence that we've got this high technology, it's high trade. But one thing, so there's obviously going to be a link. I'm thinking that maybe what the Romans have done is a massive injustice. They've painted these people as being savages, as being backwards people living in smelly little roundhouses, and it's not the case. It's very different than that. And as you start to look at the mining, such as the salt, we start to look at the mining with the tin, for example. You've got tin a bit further north, and you've got the copper and the iron and all the rest of it. So it's really unfair that the Romans have painted the Germanic people as they start to come across them bit by bit as being barbarians, because they're certainly not that. And when you, for example, I don't know if any of you have ever seen the film with Christopher Plummer in, called The Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire, which I think roughly late 1960s, which is a brilliant film. Well, I used to love that when I was a child, watching Rise and Fall of the Roman Empire. And it basically, I think it did a justice to the Germanic people for once. It's a bit like it's set at the time of the film Gladiator, where Marcus Aurelius is assassinated by Commodus, who's actually played by Christopher Plummer, actually. And what they've got, they've got this great piece that Marcus Aurelius wanted on the German frontier, but they portray lots of the people in the Germanic frontier as being actually not people wandering around in skins and backwards and all the rest of it. They propose in that they're a little bit more than that, which is great. It's probably the first time we've seen that in a great movie from the 1960s. But it's quite interesting that Hollywood is actually justifying the research and everything they put into it, where in fact the Roman story isn't actually the correct one when you talk about these peoples in the East, which are the German people.
How do they know that those buildings had so many windows in them?
They went back with somebody with a camera and they took a photograph. No, what they're doing, they're basing this on archaeological data. So what they can do, they've got bits of evidence of how buildings have collapsed and they've been set alight, and they can think, right, we can see evidence that part of a building there was a window, and then this building is exactly the same format as that building, and then that building's the same as that. And then this indicates that there's a street. I'm not saying all their reconstructions are going to be completely correct, which is wrong, or whether everything that they're showing all existed at the same time. But then again, this is where we're going with this when we look at the archaeology.
One last question. Is it
no, not another one.
Just a little question. Is it a man-made hill or is it a natural hill?
Natural hill. Well, that is actually something that's well spotted, because Maiden Castle isn't. Maiden Castle is man-made, but this is a natural hill at Heuneburg.
Wow, because it's very flat. The surrounding area is completely flat, isn't it?
When you think about it, it's very near the Danube, so the Danube's had a little bit of activity on the overall landscape,
Okay,
with erosion and all the rest of it. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I'm absolutely knackered now. Anne.
No, I'm nothing to add. Sorry, today.
Go on, Janice. We want to hear your voice. Anything you want to say?
Sorry, Anne. I'm puzzled by the thatch that they put on the walls. Are they saying those walls are defensive?
Now that's a really interesting point because when you've the problem is the walls are not massively high, right? So the way they're projecting the height is by saying obviously if you've got a limestone footing, there's only a certain amount of earth that these limestone footings can actually take before the
Yeah.
whole thing subsides. They can get an idea of height, right? So then it's right. So obviously, if you're going to have an earthen wall, right, it's not going to last long unless it's roofed,
Yeah,
right? So when
my problem with the thatch is
yeah,
that
it's
if
going to
you
set the
are
light.
attacked, it burns.
Yes, it does, and this is one of the things that the first thing you're going to do is set lights on the thatch. So therefore, it goes into what I've said about lots of these hill forts. Most of them are seemingly not defensive, right? They're really not defensive in that in that vein, right? So that's a really really good point, and that's one thing I would say. What we do see with some reconstructions of medieval castles is that at tops of the walls you've got these these wooden sheltered sort of overhangs and stuff, and you're thinking, well, that's not exactly practical either, because if you've got like a ballista and you manage to hit some of this overhang on this stone wall, you just yank this thing and the whole thing comes loose, right? So those reconstructions are not going to work. So then you look at something like this. So basically, the idea of the reconstruction is based on what I've just told you, with this wall that you can actually clearly see, which is 600 years old, back in old Wiltshire, right? Things like that, right? And also, strangely enough, when you go to places like Hungary, Romania, and Bulgaria, and bits of southern Germany, you can actually still see some really old timber work, which is 1,000+ years old. And it's quite amazing, fascinating, and lots of this has actually survived. And as the likes of as lots of these countries start to come in out of what happened in 1945, because lots of these countries are still sort of blanketed by this mist, but we're able to open the box and understand it a lot more. And one of the big questions I've always asked myself, right, is based on this in the 19 in the Great War. They did, lots of people described digging trenches through Roman villas and sort of they would find things and they would put them through Iron Age sites and medieval this and that and all these different types of things, right? We don't hear the same thing about the Second World War because things were done so rapidly and with haste that nothing seems to be reported or and so on. So it's quite interesting that that large chunks of that landscape have been destroyed, particularly to the north and towards the east. That we will never know about huge tracts of this history, right? But then, nevertheless, Andy gave a good demonstration earlier on. It's still out there, and some of it still will be found.
Right.
Oh, bloody hell! This is wearing me out. Is David still here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see him.
Right, David. Anything you want to say?
Got really worried of it.
You go and make yourself a cup of coffee, are
They
you?
didn't have any glass. They wouldn't have big holes like that in the walls.
They would be small, exactly. They would be small shutters. David, you've got a good point. Do I believe everything that we're seeing on those reconstructions? The answer is no. But what I would say is what I would say is that if we take back some of what we're saying, and they would not have had glass, they would have had shutters, and you take away the fact, if you take away some of this, right, but what you're left with, David, you are left with a a landscape that people are organized. There is a street pattern. There is this rectangular building here, and there's another one here, and there's a road between them. That's organization. You've got this wall that goes around that. It's not like the reconstructed images, but it's close, and that's the point. The point is not the reconstructed image, but the level of sophistication and the level of organization that these people had in the Iron Age, which is something that we didn't give them credit for in the past. Andy?
I'm quite fascinated by the fact that you've got your Bronze Age burial mounds and that La Tène style of metalworking and pottery, which is throughout Western Europe and into Britain and all the rest of it, and all the same, round. And all of a sudden you've got that gap, and you've got squared off buildings, rectangular ones, whatever. You know, not at all like anything else in Western Europe at all. Has to have come, I'm guessing, from the east or the southeast.
We're gonna go with that one, right? But I'm gonna put a red herring in. Where did thousands of years before, where did the idea of Stonehenge come from? And the point is you 90% of what you just said, Andy's correct, right? But where did the idea of Stonehenge come from? I know it's a different period. There's no reason why some of this couldn't be reciprocal from their own advanced understanding of the landscape, right? However, Andy, right, Duropolis that we've already looked at is a landscape that's organized. It's a patterned landscape of circular buildings with their own little sort of enclosure area, right? With a little road going down them, and sort of Cleaver Atrabatum's the same and stuff, right? You don't necessarily need to have a linear to be organized, right? No. And that's the point. David made the wonderful point last week. You didn't need the wheel within the Incan civilization because the roads were so narrow, but they had organization to have the roads in the first place. When, you know, so there's all different ways of looking at the past. But the one way you look at the past is that people suited and fitted where they needed to be within that moment in time.
Maybe that's why they put the wall around it, to hide them, because they weren't round.
Shut up, you silly man.
One of the images looked almost like a military barracks with a parade ground in the centre.
These are German reconstructions, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way. Oh, shit, man. Right, okay then. Judith.
No, I've got nothing to ask or comment on. Thank you. That's very interesting.
Thank you. Adrina?
I'm looking at round houses and rectangular houses. If they take animals in within the house, did they do that on round houses? Would it be easier to deal with it in a rectangular one, keep them at one end?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, right? The thing is, I've got sheep living underneath this building, right? Within this byre, there are sheep living underneath this building, right? You don't necessarily need to have animals living with you for them to be with you, right? Yeah. You can live above them, you can live with them. There's different perspectives, right? But the main thing to understand about all of this technology is that people did different things in different areas to suit their needs.
Okay.
Right, so who's next? Roger, and then we're going to have a break.
Right, just an old faithful. Who first named hill forts? There's a lot been said about what they did, didn't do, and couldn't do. But where did the term first come from? From the writings of the Roman scribes, or was it our more modern stuff?
Right. So the idea of fort is almost as if it's like a
soldiers,
like a cartographical thing, right? So it's just like everything was a fort at one stage. So when in the 1800s, everything was a fort. It's got ditches around it. It's a fort. So it's Roman. Yeah, oh yeah,
I
obviously.
think if there was something to do with the contents, because you're saying that other one, it was like a lot of these pictures, what people might think, some historical thing, some like a storytelling thing, which isn't not based on what's been found within, like our local fort at Ely in Cardiff, the Hill Fort there. There'll be various things found from digs, stuff, scans, where it gives you some information as to what's happening. And unless you've got sort of armaments there and things, it's not a fort because of those soldiers there, which is what a fort is. It's more of a sort of enclosed area saying this is my patch or to keep the animals safe. So it's always taking us away from what the thing was used for. And more, as you said, with the German one, it's a town which gives cooperation and people together, some protection from
Right. Yeah.
any rustlers, the odd raided bandits, as you get now, the clowns of this world who are robbing and attacking people. And I thought, well, the Hill Fort, it was just given us a sort of an idea out of the mist, really, not based on anything. And that's right, is it? Because some of these things, we're
It's
wondering
just
what they really are.
basically all it is a classification. And we're putting the problem is with archaeology, everything's placed into a classification. So they're classifying everything under the same umbrella. So this is why it makes things very confusing.
But
So
nothing
you can't you,
seriously
you
about what
can't
it.
you can't see these as a military thing. You've got to see
No.
them as a more of a fluid thing that fits that
No,
a square
yeah.
peg hits different sort of like a round hole, that type of thing. So there's different ways of looking at this all the
No one's
time.
ever sort of tried to reclassify it as well, we haven't found this, so it could be this. What about these alternative ideas? But nothing's come that I've seen trying to
No.
explain it away as a way of keeping things safe in some way or what? Because they couldn't tell much inside with all the goings on within the area.
And it's a hell of a lot of effort. I think the
Anyway,
point is, if you want to look at it this way, right? Um, Workhouses and almshouses, particularly workhouses, they would put people in the workhouses to do things that would not compete with any other industry. So they would get people to um, uh, bang bang a wooden peg into a wooden hole all day long, right? To keep people busy, but there was no actual purpose to what they were doing, right? So they
Okay,
would not
geez,
compete to any
yeah.
other industry, right? The problem is you can't get people doing practical things in a workhouse because it competes with normal laborers. So if you might, for example, get people breaking up stones, only for those stones to be dumped into the river because if they're used in modern industry, then that competes with people who are actually in modern industry
Yeah,
in the
clashes.
1800s. So there's no practical purpose. So in other words, these might be projects to keep people busy or unified in a project that they think worthy of the community and therefore unifying them. Right. Okay, folks, let's take a break. It's 8:47. Oh my God. Right. We're gonna have a 10-minute break because we're going to take this is really running quick tonight. This has gone so quick. It's 8:48. I want us back just before 9, so go on, have yourself a drink.
Okay, Captain. I'll go get me a tea. Here.
Yes.
Did you know? Did you know that there were no house numbers? Do you know when we started having house numbers, David?
No idea.
1855.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Was it saying anything about what had they managed before the house numbers?
I don't
What they
know.
had before?
I don't know. I was just curious, so I just put in there was no regulation of house numbers until 1855 with the passing of the Metropolitan Management Act.
Mm.
So that's quite late on, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on. One of the earliest street numbering systems was introduced in London in 1746. But in Paris, it started in 1512.
Yeah. And yet some villages, I mean, I lived in one for a long time that had no street numbers.
No.
You know, I think just when I was leaving, which was about 18 years ago, they started to say we needed to have the place numbered, but
Yeah.
and there must be lots of other villages that don't have, you know, they've only got not too many houses and everybody can just describe where it is, sort of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, people sent letters and things, didn't they?
Yes,
back then?
yes, but if suppose if the village is small enough and have house names, the postman knows them. Yeah, it depends how big it is and small it is, doesn't it?
Perhaps things just went to like a local centre. I don't know. The history of housing.
But as I say, if things were getting bigger, you wonder how on earth they managed in a place like
Yeah,
London or any of the big cities
yeah.
before they had any.
Don't forget that most people couldn't read and write for a long time, so it was
Absolutely.
only
So there
the
weren't many
richer
letters.
educated. So
But no, not many letters going anywhere. Anyway.
well, there were. I think there were quite a lot, especially in the Victorian time. But the I think you were right before saying that the local post delivery service, whatever that was, because the post office obviously didn't exist for a long time either,
No.
was written. It used to the letters. You folded the letters inside themselves and wrote the address on the outside or the back of the paper you were writing on quite often,
Yeah.
and it would be just to, you know, Andy Arnside, you know, and you know, because there wouldn't be that many people who could read or write.
No.
It looked as though when you look at, say, some of the films like Jane Austen's thing, they were paying the person who received it paid the postman for delivering or something.
Yeah. It said there were irregularities everywhere, and the naming of streets and parts of streets was left to the idiosyncrasy or whim of the owner. So,
And then the post office system came in, and that really capped it.
so I could just call this Maggie's pad, couldn't I? Maggie's pad on side.
You can call it that. You just have to register whatever name it is with the post office to get your mail. Otherwise, you can call it what you like.
Yeah.
And if you think of Margaret, if you think of our road doesn't start at the corner where you
No.
think it was. It starts two doors down for some stupid reason. Causes chaos.
And
Literally.
it's all the different. We've got. I'm on a close. Are you on a drive?
Yeah.
There's a close. There's a drive. There's gardens.
Yeah.
There's street, road.
All sorts.
There's so many different names.
Brought up in a road called Macintosh Place.
Place,
place
yeah.
to me means smaller number of houses, perhaps 12, 20, something. But what had happened, they'd built originally 1980s, the start of it, and added and added. So in the end, it was more like a half a mile long or more as a place, which is crazy when you think, I thought this would be a small place that's a long road. It's just things develop and you can't change.
I guess
And
if your address is on a road.
History here of naming a lot in Welsh names,
Mm.
which they didn't originally, or they changed some of the Welsh names to English because people coming in, including our lot, who couldn't pronounce it, didn't know what the heck they were over. But now in this state where I am now, most of the streets are Welsh names from the 30s, whatever.
Sorry, guys.
And the one around the corners, Leamington Road.
I can put on charge and have to phone from you now.
It's as it comes from somebody's fancy, the builder, perhaps. I don't know.
Here we go. I've just put on charge.
Who's that?
That's Carl. He's getting.
I have to put my thingy on charge. My ding-a-ling.
What's wrong with your
charged
thing?
up.
All right, come on, boys. Come on, girls.
Do you have an address, Carl, where you live?
What?
Do you have an address where you live in your field?
No, no. Actually, there is no, because it's just place names along an unnamed road.
So how do you get your mail then?
For your mother.
So basically, there's a local town for our postcode, right? We've got the post. I got to do this right. Run this postcode. Above that, you got the county. Above that, you got the town. Above that, you got the village. Above that, you got the hamlet, and then the house name.
Good grief!
In other words, right? The postcode does not relate to any street. It does. Right. The postman knows where we are, and the postman knows where our neighbor is, and the postman knows where that farm is, right? But it's not organized along a street because the road there's no road. Right. There is a road. There is a road, but the road is not a place, a name, or anything like that. It's just a road.
Well, I hope they don't sack your postman, or you won't get any mail, will you?
Oh, he probably will be sacked because they, as you know, they obviously he's a really nice postman, but like most postmen are going to be sacked because it's a new company, isn't it?
I know, yeah.
Or the other fellow from.
Oh God, guys, it's 9:01, right? Wait, I want to get through this, so stop talking. It's that new woman, Janice.
Go on,
She
get on with it.
I tell you what, she hasn't stopped talking.
Oh, get on.
Roger, I got to start picking on her now because she's going to think I'm a nice guy.
No, I'll have a chat with her at the end. 5 minutes to do it. I'll thank you. Oh.
Somebody said, get on with it. Right.
First time I met you, they said, have you met Carl? No. Oh, you're in for a big surprise. Make the tea. Make your own tea.
Right. Okay. Then. So what I need to do, I think I'm gonna do a little bit more spiel, right, and then I'm going to run through these images, right. So we're gonna because I want to get through these images. And I'm realizing that I'm running out of time. So So recent work itself in and around the Heuneburg area has produced groundbreaking information regarding the full extent of the settlement. So so the one thing about this is that it very much relates to this sort of the reconstruction landscape has probably put you all off, and it's thinking, well, you know, what's Carl saying about these buildings? Did it really look like this? And I'm saying, you know, what we're trying to do is to glean a relationship of understanding about this landscape. But one of the things it's saying is that this is only part of a small this is only a small part of this landscape. So if we go with this image, where's this image? 1, 2, 3. Oh God, is that the one? No, not that one. There was an image here of where is it? A minute. 1, 2, 3, 4. It was a nice there. These ones, yes. You can basically see Heuneburg is there, only a little bit of it. Remember this Heuneburg site there on the right hand side is only the purple stuff is where all the buildings are. So the purple stuff is where all the buildings are. The rectangular things is where all the field arrangements are. So the Heuneburg site, as you can tell, 150 meters by 300 meters, right? So this landscape is referring to this as the Eisenslung. I wish my German was better. Right, but this Eisenslung, this area, consists of 100 hectares of organized land, and Heidelberg is only part of that landscape. So they're referring to Heuneburg there, and there you've got Lower Town, and they're talking about the external settlement. So in other words, this is urbanization. Yes, I got another term from my university days. So this is the urbanized landscape. So the citadel proper, if you want to refer to it as a citadel, Heuneburg on the right. So you've got this organized landscape with separated, fenced, palisaded landscape. And what you've got is this organized, terraced world. Right now, what I need to do is I need to bring you into another civilization. Now, what we're seeing is this organization that we're seeing at Heuneburg in the Iron Age back 2,500 years ago is something that is very similar to Central American civilizations. So I know this is a bit of a leap to make, but when you're talking about Central American civilizations, sort of, for example, the beginning of the Maya, as then they developed in the Aztecs. So if we go back 2,000 years and we talk about all those other civilizations like the Zapotecs, the Olmecs, and so on, all of that, that type of civilization in Central America was very much developing into it was like this. It was like around a central hub. And then what you've got, obviously in Central America, they make more use of water courses and stuff. But there's water courses involved in this plan. And what you've got in Central America, they make lots of use about terracing of the landscape and active use of the landscape, which you've got this active use of this landscape of the Iron Age 2,500 years ago within this German, Austrian, Switzerland landscape. So, and again, what they're saying is that I'm going to go with the lower figure actually, because it would be difficult to go with a higher figure. But the lowest figure of population within this area is about 5,000 people. And I'm reminded, Andy, that the population of Arnside is about 4,000 people. Is that correct?
2008, wasn't it?
2,300.
Oh, where's 4,000 anyway? So when you think about this, I know Arnside is spread out, isn't it? It's like hilly. Well, I used to live there, so it's like spread out, right? But if Arnside's got a population just over 2,000 people, this had a population here of 5,000 people. So this is a lot of people. Some people say it may have been 10,000 people. But what you've got within this landscape is those parcels of land which are part of the supporting the population, the landscape, and being part of the overall whole, right? So what we've got is that when we really start to get into this and we start to understand this and we look at this larger territory, and they're talking about what we've got Heidelberg there, and they've got these mound type things. Now, there's these burial mounds within the Heidelberg landscape, which are earlier burial mounds, but the earlier burial mounds are part of the Iron Age landscape. They're still there. It's not like, oh, there's a burial mound there, we're going to demolish it, we're going to get rid of it. So what there is these mounds are still within the terrain of this really intriguing, dynamic world, this dynamic landscape. And again, thinking about how this is organized. Now, the one thing that is clear, right, is you can clearly see on the left, which is you've got a gatehouse there, and you've got the sort of gatehouse organization here, right? And the one thing to be said about that is that it's only these areas that are actually given in any way, sense or shape of fortification. And remember, that's Heidelberg, the hub of this. And when you go over to this, so the only really defended area is this area, and the rest of the area isn't defended. Right now, when you think about it, again, all of this isn't defended. Right, it's open. So if this is going to be one of those landscapes that is defended, right, why is that this isn't defended? Doesn't that answer one of somebody's questions earlier on? Is this here as a bit of play on defense, right? The idea of defense. Now, they're saying that some of the fortifications at Heuneburg, some of the ditches themselves look today to be up to 6 meters deep, right? Which is very, very interesting. They're saying that the gatehouses, for example, within this landscape, are, for example, the gatehouses, the dimensions of the gatehouses are 12 by 6 meters. You know, this quite big gatehouses, and they're making a lot of fuss over the gatehouses, right? And this might be, in a way, to, as Andy said, replicating the sense of ornamentation that we actually see in places in Greece. Now, what I said is I want to get through those images that I've got, which is very important because it sort of really illustrates everything that I want to tell you, right? But as we go on to talking about, and there's so much I could have told you more tonight, but get onto these illustrations. So here we go. Heidelberg, and there we go, this burial, and the reason why we've got this chariot burial, now a wooden chariot burial, obviously comparison, what we've got in the northeastern part of England, for example, in Yorkshire, or places like Gartland Slack and West Wang Slack. If you've got your book on ancient Britain, you'll see references to chariot burials. We've actually found chariot burials in West Wales, 2 of them over the past few years. Now, the reason we mention chariot burials is it's very important because chariot burials are a leveler. They're an important leveler to try and sort of help us understand that there's comparisons, that there's things that are very similar across this Iron Age world, across Europe, from mainland Europe all the way over to Great Britain. Again, this sense of the barrows within this overall landscape of Heidelberg. The Heidelberg and its surroundings, again, we've seen this, we understand this, and obviously there's lots going on out there. Now, we've already seen this chronology, and we've understood that in many ways, the main bit of the Iron Age stuff, where it says HAD1, the main bit in the middle there, which is this here, is very important because this is when the main beating, pulsating heart of the settlement is occurring. And then suddenly everything changes because that changes, because the site decays, the site sort of denudes into something very, very different in history. Seeing all of this and understanding something like this, I tell you what, right? I'm looking at this and I'm squinting my eyes and I'm thinking of I'm thinking of a Rambo film. I think
Well,
The second one where he goes in to rescue a load of American servicemen, and I'm thinking this looks like a Vietnamese village, right? But it's not. It's how they're perceiving a projection of what this Iron Age site looked like, and just play with you a little bit, guys. If we just change these to be that's a round building, that's a round building, that's a round building, that's a round build. Why are if I change these to round buildings and I had a load of round buildings in a row, what makes these different? It doesn't make it different at all. Just because they're round doesn't mean to say that they're not as good as rectangular and square buildings. I think that's the point I want to make. And again, it's talking about this again, mounds in the vicinity of Heuneburg hill fort, which is again something that we find with our own sites in Britain. I will give you an example. Now, there's a site in South Wales called the Bulwarks, and what you've got a nice entranceway, right? It's along near the coast, but the coast would have been a bit further away back then. You've got an entranceway, banks of ditches on the left, banks of ditches on the right, and over there on the corner, you've got a circular mound, right, which is actually part of the defences, which breaks up the defences. It's almost as if, oh, right, okay, if anyone's attacking it, be wary that there's a round thing there. Don't go that way. Attack here, okay? Don't make sense, does it? So, but it does make sense for them because this important landscape is very much when you look at the Iron Age, when we're trying to understand these hill forts, these banks and ditch enclosures, as something other than defensive. Now, this is something that Andy mentioned earlier on. When we look at the European Iron Age, not the British Iron Age, when I've been looking at my Iron Age, I've hardly mentioned Latin at all, right? I've in fact not mentioned Hallstatt at all. But in Europe, they organize it in a more puritanical way. For example, what we're looking at with our site at Heuneburg is the Hallstatt period, where there's a certain level of sophistication, there's a certain level of building, and then you've got the normal Latin. All of these places based on exact locations in Europe, and Hallstatt is southeast of Heuneburg. Now, when you look at these terminologies like Latin, they're referring to artistic and projections of a style that these people are using as the Iron Age develops. But I haven't actually really gone there because it's what we've done with our looking at the Iron Age is to try and understand our Iron Age in a straightforward, more understanding and argumentative way in many ways. In lots of these barrows, they're very, very well preserved. We get really well preserved archaeology. And just think about this one. Just read what it says there. A CT scan of bronze staple decorated leather belt and bronze belt plate within the burial mound. So what you've got here is you've got a burial mound, a grave that is intact, where you've got almost I think you might be talking about a Bronze Age belt, decorated belt, a belt that's been decorated with bronze, a leather belt. Again, we've already done that. Now, this is rather interesting. A child's grave. Now, this is a burial of a child's grave within this landscape. And again, buried with this is a child, okay? And I'm not exactly, I think we're looking at just around before, just around the 700s. I think this dates from, I think this burial, not exactly sure, but what you've got this, and when you do get dates for these, it's really difficult to do anyway, because they're usually radiocarbon dated within about 100-200 years anyway. But this burial, just the point being made here is that this burial is of a child, a female child, not a male child. You know that thing that we did about the females being really dominant within Iron Age culture in Europe. right? Probably the females are more predominant than males in decision making. We saw that at Geropolis the other week. Right? We see this with a burial, right? That a child, a female child, again, is buried with bronze. There's organic material there, glass beads. A child buried with glass beads and amber beads, jet and glass beads. And again, and a small bronze ring, blue glass beads. Now, the blue glass beads are actually, do you know where the blue glass beads are going to come from? They're going to come from Syria and Egypt. So this child, this burial of a child within the Heuneburg landscape is buried in a very ornate, very powerful way to say that this child is important to these people, and to actually have a burial mound associated with them, which is quite amazing, really. And we do believe that the girl looked like this. There she is.
Oh,
With those beautiful beads. So obviously we get the scattering of the beads around the body, don't we? We get all these beads around and organized like this. And there she is. This is how we believed that this girl actually looked. Very interesting. And then we got those bracelets there. Interpretation of the Speckenhau grave, right? So again, this burial telling us a story about a girl that's given all the finery and all the respect that anybody deserves within this landscape. And yeah, I do believe these are actually contemporary with the period that we're actually talking about. You listen to this, right? I've not given this tonight as much justice as I should have done, but there's one grave that they found containing a man and a woman, which had already been plundered. But in there they found, within the burial of the man and the woman, they found riches, including horse trappings, 600 glass beads from a necklace. 600 glass beads. Some of these beads have come all the way from thousands of miles away from the Greek and the Egyptian world. Pieces of amber which come from the north. They come from Heuneburg up in the north, and obviously you've got all these wonderful mounds. And the one with the chariot that we've mentioned, the chariot earlier on, that burial was actually for a man and a woman. Now, oh God, there's something really important about this image that I want to show you. Now, okay. The mounds within this landscape, some are Bronze Age, some are Iron Age. There you go. But if you go down, you've got the grave numbers from 1 to 17. And here we go. Do you see the word neck ring material? Andy knows where I'm going with that. Heuneburg neck rings, right? Neck rings are a big Iron Age thing. Yeah. So you've got the first three with gold neck rings, bronze, gold. These are all bronze. And look at that one there. One of the burials, burial number 6, has actually got a neck ring made of. Go on, one of you read what that says.
Yeah, got it.
It's iron.
Iron.
And do you know what?
That's so unusual.
That is not just unusual, Andy. That is powerful, because it's something I really struggle when I say to people that the most powerful object to be buried with in the Iron Age is an iron torque, right? An iron neck ring, right? Well, last week, when we were, it was Geropolis, right? People were being found buried with iron things, and I said that was really unusual, right? That was Geropolis in Britain, right? That site near Dorchester. But there you've got one burial with somebody with an iron neck ring, and that iron neck ring would have been far more expensive to produce than every single neck ring on that list, because the amount of energy that went into making that one iron neck ring tells me that person was massively powerful. Forget whether they're male or female, right? That person is buried with an iron neck ring. That to me is something that I've been trying to find. This is a great burial here, and this is a probable male burial with a sword. Probable male. I glad they said probable because it could be a female buried with a sword. I'm glad they've got that. So obviously, you've got, so iron identifies this as an Iron Age burial because it's not Bronze Age, because in this part of Europe, we don't get that iron. We don't get iron in the Bronze Age. Yeah, that's another thing, another lecture, right? But for now, everything's fine. But what we've got, this person's almost buried in, well, they're buried in a wooden coffin, right? There's bronze, there's iron objects in there again. Oh, iron object because an iron sword, right? A belt hook. This is so exciting. Tips of spear arrow, spear points. This is so exciting. And I'm realizing now that maybe I may leave. Who's this? All right, okay. But Andy, don't let him in because that's for yet. Okay, Andy. So leave Tom there for now. But what we've got, I'm thinking maybe I'm rushing this, and maybe I should give this a little bit more detail next week. Tonight has just gone so quick. It really has. And there's a few other things that I'd like to do, and a few other comparisons to do with Danebury and Sarum. So what I'm going to do, folks, is I'm going to say that we got lots more, a few, I don't know, 10-15 minutes to do with Heuneburg, but I don't want to go beyond, say, 9:30. And the reason why we're starting and at half an hour earlier is so that we don't go up to 10 o'clock, right? So if we keep some of that for next week and we come back to this next week a little bit more refreshed, and we maybe look a little bit more about those burials, try to get into those burials, and let's see some more, and then we can look at Danebury, the site at Danebury, and understand the link between Danebury and Heuneburg. We've already done the Maiden Castle thing. We don't really need to do that, but I'll bring a couple more things in, and obviously then we'll have the other talk that we've got next week. Don't forget to stay there, Janice. And where's Anne gone? Oh, there she is. So what we're going to do, because I want Janice and Anne to stay at the end, because I've got to give them lines, right? And on behalf of everybody, Janice, it's great to have somebody new, right? The last person we had new, we never saw him again.
Maybe no, don't talk to her at the end then, Carl.
Yeah, don't blow it now.
You don't know what I'm going to say to her.
No, that's true.
After the initiation ceremony.
I might ask her if she wants to come along with Anne and sit on my chaise lounge.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, that's a new line.
steady on.
Yeah, come on, Carl, get original.
No, do you know what? I knew this woman
Etchings.
once. I knew this woman once, and she said she bought a sage lounge, right? And she got this sage lounge to be cleaned, right? And then the cleaner said, "There's something dodgy about this sage lounge. There's two £50 notes stuffed into the crease in the sage lounge," and they actually gave it to this woman, and I was just surprised that they were so honest.
Yeah. Why were
I
they?
don't know what that's got to do with anything. I don't. All right. I just thought I'd put that in there.
Very honest. Good.
Very honest about the sage lounge. Right. Okay. Then we'll ask Drina and then David if they got any questions. So Drina, you first with a red woolly jumper.
No questions. Thank you.
Right. David hasn't got a woolly jumper, but he certainly looks warm. Look at him. He's got a coat on and he looks really warm. David.
No, I've got nothing, thank you. If you'd found just one more site in Germany like that one, I might have believed it. But having only one site in the whole of Germany or the whole of that area, just not on. Anyway, good night all.
Hi, David.
Hi, David. Of
David, you can't just leave it there, David.
course you can. There's always next week.
Well, okay, right. I've got to find something for David for next week. Oh, David, damn you! Oh God! David! David, come back!
You're going to be sleeping now, are you?
I'm not going to be sleeping for a whole week. I want to know. Oh, he really infuriates me, that man. Right, David. So now, what I've got to do, I've got to try and prove David wrong.
Find another one.
There will be more. There's bound to be.
Oh, there
No.
should be.
We're going to find something similar to that. Basically, we focused. We
Follow the
focused
Danube.
Keep the
Yeah.
turkey on.
Yes.
Andy, don't add the other person on a minute.
Okay.
Exactly. David said, right? I said that there was nothing like this in Germany, right? Say I found something like it in France. Do you see what I did there?
Yeah.
Is it near Vercingetorix territory?
Hang on a minute. No, it's not. It's way south. You've got to go past the Maginot line.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that then?
Actually, it's not that funny.
I want to know
What do you want to know?
whether it was a matriarchal or a patriarchal society, given that we've started to discover that a lot of it was matriarchal in Britain.
Women like
Yeah.
circles. So women.
Okay.
Oh,
That's such a stereotype, but
Oh my
interesting
God.
argument.
dear
Yeah.
me.
I'm in trouble here because I could be going in another direction.
Yeah.
Right, Andy, help me. I'm in a hole.
I hadn't ever
Well,
considered
there you
that's
go.
interesting.
Oh,
I always
Andy
played square on
agrees.
the Romans, but they obviously weren't the ones that brought in square. So.
Where did the Etruscans come from?
Etruscan.
Italy.
Tuscany, a silly
Tuscany,
woman.
where
The
Tuscany is
Tuscans.
now.
Tuscany in Italy.
I thought they might
Italian,
have come from
mid-Italy.
Austria for some reason.
No.
Austria.
They maybe went there on their holidays.
Dabbled. They dabbled in eugenics.
What? You what?
Oh, Roger, don't even know what
Where are you
eugenics
going?
are.
One mention of the Heuneburg and you're off. Yeah.
Have a quiet moment.
No, please help. Right, okay then. Right, okay. So, right, okay. Where I'm lost now. Is that coffee I had? Right. Let's start again. Let's calm down a minute. Right. We've done Drina. David's burnt my head. Right. He's really damaged it. Right. Anything you want to say, Andy?
No, other than I'd wondered if there was any evidence of matriarchal or patriarchal society.
Oh, there, that one. No,
Yeah.
we're not going there again.
No, it's fine. Just because I like the idea that Iron Age in Britain was possibly more matriarchal than they were thinking originally. So
Yeah, because women like circles and
oh no,
we've done that one.
you went
No.
down that one. I didn't go down that one. But it's a really interesting idea, that actually.
Right, men. Oh no, I was going to say something then. No,
No,
Andy,
leave it
stop
till
me.
next week. Yes. Go on to Margaret. She's bound to have something interesting.
Margaret, don't talk about squares and circles, Margaret.
Don't be sarcastic, Andy.
Sorry. No, I do admit you probably did have some. You've always got an interesting question.
Oh,
So.
heck.
Yeah.
Here we go. This is
well,
the thing, right? Why
What
is
about
it,
house
right?
numbers?
Tablets are usually round, right, and not square because women invented tablets.
Right.
my tablet's oblong.
Not lying, not that.
So near.
That's
Very
because
good.
men invented mobile phones. Oh
Like
my
Star Trek.
god!
Did they?
Oh no! What have I just said?
I don't know.
Why couldn't they tell if that skeleton that they found was not? They didn't know if it was male or female.
I was really happy.
Tell by
I,
the pelvis and the
Actually,
eyebrows.
you know what I should have done? I should have said it might be. The thing is, right? I should have said that it might be a woman because they're saying it might be a man. It's either a man or a woman. So it's what the hell?
Alice Roberts would know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, sod Alice Roberts.
Oh, hey.
You
He's
know,
always
Alice
tell.
Roberts. Alice Roberts is a humanist, right? And
Yes.
He
oh,
would
don't
know.
go there. Yeah.
No, don't.
Anyway,
Oh,
you
right,
lost.
don't
You
you start.
lost.
Oh my God, Andy, I'm really nearly upset Janice now.
Yeah. Go
You
back
lost
to
me.
roundhouses. Yeah.
Oh,
You lost me at the chaise lounge, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
anything else? I've lost you on the Sage Lounge. Anything you want to say?
No, that's it.
Right. Okay then. Right. Who's next? Oh, I am really getting out on this one. Right. Janice. Right.
Yes.
Oh yeah, we'll do Janice. Anything you want to say?
No, not really. It's been a very entertaining evening.
Janice, has it been worth waiting for the past 2 months to come on join us?
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. I have had so much on Tuesdays.
Cancel off. Stay with us.
Any excuse?
I would
Well,
say.
you know, Andy's excuse is I've been saving lives, but he still turns up.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's a man of the moment.
he is.
He's a man of the moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he likes Sasquatches. Right. Okay. Thanks for that, Janice. Janice, on behalf of everybody, it's been an absolute pleasure having your company tonight. Hopefully you'll join us next week. Right,
Yeah, see you next week.
Yeah. Don't. By the way, Roger's a bit of a dippy person, but that's like Roger. Anything you want to say? Rog.
No.
Not me. I got a shade short. Is that any good?
A stool.
Yes. I'm only little, so I need only a little chair.
Yeah.
Sure.
If I was sprawled out, that would be another field, which I won't discuss.
The Sage Lounge, okay? I'm never going to mention the Sage Lounge again. That's it. End of story.
Well, it's an interesting idea, and much pleasure on Lake Diamond.
We've got one.
Can I tell you, right? I see a counsellor on a Monday. No, an acting counsellor that I speak to every single Monday, right? And at the end of this, we're talking about my sheep, right? And then we're talking about the guy in Millham who was identified for doing something with a sheep because his wife saw his left cheek of his bum in the newspaper with a tattoo on it, and she reported him to the police.
You are
What?
joking.
Make an
I
ass
am
of himself.
not. It happened.
Well, it wasn't Gilbert, was it?
No.
How do you know?
I'm
No,
sure Gilbert didn't have any tattoos.
He was.
How do you know? How
You
do you
don't
know?
know, Anne,
Well, I don't. But
A lot of people get tattoos all over the place. It's surprising
Yeah.
where they put them.
Janice, you don't know what you got into, yeah. Right, okay then.
Oh, you haven't
Right.
told her? Oh.
I haven't told her. I think Anne hasn't told her. Anne, you're next.
I don't know anything tonight.
Right. Oh, okay. Then. Well, don't forget, you two have got to stay just for a couple of minutes. Right. And finally, right, what we're going to do, we're going to find out if Fraggle's got anything to say.
Only that a lot of these places are on sort of rivers and watercourses, aren't they? So if you're
Yeah.
going to find any more, there probably will be
Hundreds.
along the Danube or the
Yeah.
Rhine or the
Big,
Rhone or
big
the
trade
I can't
route
think
of
of any others.
Danube. Yeah.
Or it's been eroded away.
Yeah, maybe.
Apparently Attila the Hun had the whole Danube blocked off to bury his treasure in the middle, and then he let the water flow and nobody could find her again.
I wonder if they had any cranogs in.
And a statue of Lloyd George,
Oh, of course.
the gold one. Cranogs.
Did
Oh,
they
don't
have
you go
cranogs?
there. Don't you go there. I'm going to have David going on about cranogs next week. So we're going to find this other site for him.
And cranogs as well.
No.
No.
Oh, right then. We'll do, just because, Margaret's thinking, oh, well, it's all about David this week, blah, blah, blah. So I got to find something to, okay, we'll find cranogs for you.
Okay, thank you.
European cranogs.
There are
Do you know what?
European cranogs.
Margaret used to take things really personally once, and we used to have these things. Twice I convinced her to stay in the class. You don't take anything personally anymore, right? But the cranogs might be something.
There you go, you see.
Mm.
Oh.
I don't listen to her at all. Right.
Nice.
Okay. Anyone? Right. Anne, I gotta say it for the 10th time. You two don't go, right? I'm gonna have a quick chat. Right. Other than that, as Margaret, Roger, Gina, Janice, not Janice, Judith, Andy, Anne, or Janice got anything they want to say
Who
before?
was that Diane who came in?
Who?
Diane.
Who's
On
Diane?
an iPad or something.
Diane.
Yeah.
Diane. Lady Diana.
No, she came in and said iPad or something. iPad. A little while ago.
Can you shut up because I don't know what you're on about.
Came out at the bottom. Diane, iPad. Unless that was you monkeying about with it.
No, and I personally don't care. I really don't. I don't care.
Oh,
I really don't.
there's two people waiting in the waiting room to talk to him later, Rog. It might have been them.
All right.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
neither of them is called Diane.
No, one's called Tom and one's called iPhone.
Oh,
That's what we're talking about. Right.
Diane.
Might be a...
uh,
Shh! Don't tell everybody.
What?
What?
Don't tell whatever you do, don't tell my optician, right? Helen the witch.
I see.
I've managed to break my bloody glasses.
So yeah,
oh.
No, I have. The problem is these are expensive ones, and then my driving ones, and it's just like, there you go.
What
I
are you
can't see.
like?
well,
Well,
broken.
Don't
Cross
use
road.
that. Do you know, I phoned her up because which one have you broken now? And my God, it's hit me up. My hair's getting
Yeah,
worse.
it's getting a bit carried away.
I sat on mine one day. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, good, Rod. I think at that point we're going to end. Right. Okay, then, guys.
Well,
It's
I'm
been an
selling my
absolute.
show short. What?
It's been an absolute delight tonight, right? So I'm going to say good night. I'm going to say good night to Margaret, Roger, Andy, Gina, and
Gina.
Fraggle, right?
Yeah.
And I will see you next Tuesday, you guys.
Okay.
Thanks very much,
Bye.
Judith. Nice
Good luck Saturday.
Nice to see you, Janice.
Saturday.
See you next week. Bye bye.
Night.
Bye.
Night.
Bye.
Night. I know Judith is going to stay because she's going to want to ask us something. Hang on. Judith isn't staying. Roger, you're not supposed to be here. I've got to talk to these ladies. I don't want you here.
I'm trying to find my thing on what's it.
You're going to find your thing in the what's it. You know what? Janice has got this impression that we're a bunch of complete nutters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be silly. Night.
Good night.
Good night. Right. Okay then. Janice, is this? Oh right. Hang on a minute. Right. I've got to be. This is still going out live. Right. So
Yeah.
yeah. But have you enjoyed this tonight anyway?
I have very much. Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Did you want to come along next week?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, it was really interesting, especially if you're going to carry on with basically where you were and carrying it through, because I know the head of the Danube and the head of the Rhine, and what's between them is very mountainous. So any cultural exchange is likely to be small. So I think
Yeah.
if you're looking for somewhere like this place, it's going to be up further down the Danube towards the Black Sea.
Well, maybe I could find a little something to prove. I can't prove David wrong because one of these two people you can't say is wrong, but we will try and find something, you know, and that's what we're going to do. That's what
You
we're going
can
to do.
never prove someone wrong. It's it's in
I-
the
I-
nature of
Doing
the
a
thing, isn't
negative in it.
We love our David. We don't want to upset him. So anyway, Anne, I got your shekels over this week. So that's good. And Anne's explained to you, Janice, about the membership fee and the
Yes,
two
yes,
monthly
she
fees.
has. Yeah. Mhm.
Right. So
Yeah,
if
I'm
you've got the
seeing Anne later in the week, so I'll sort the numbers right again, and then it's because I think in the leaflet you gave one to Anne to give to me.
yeah.
Yeah. There's the banking details are in there, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
That's fine then. Yeah.
Just when you do it, just show Anne and say, are these the right ones? And Anne will say, those are the right ones that I do. And then the good thing about the banking thing these days, they won't let you send any money unless the name adds up with the sort code.
That's
and the
right.
due date.
Yeah. That's fine.
Right. And have you got anything you want to ask me, Janice, before you go?
No, I don't think so. Thanks. No.
Good. Well, it'll be delight having you along. We might have somebody else new next week. So we'll see how that goes. Apparently he's mad.
It sounds as if it helps.
It is it, won't it?
Oh yeah. You got to be in it to be in it with this one. So okay then, Janice, if there's nothing else you want to say, it's been an absolute pleasure tonight, and I really enjoyed everyone's company. Janice and Anne being back. Anne's been away for like 12 months.
Not quite that long.
It isn't quite 12 months, but it has
It-
been a
it-
little while.
It's
Yeah.
felt like that. It's felt like that. It's been probably about a month, I think. So,
Yeah, it would be. I had a really bad fall, and it's taken.
oh, you
me-
have.
It's taken me quite a while to get over it. That I was warned by the hospital I'd got to take everything slowly, both intellectually and physically. So I've been resting, and I'm almost back to. I'm not taking things in so well quite, but I'm almost there fully.
As long as you take something in, then that's the main thing.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of information, a little bit of knowledge. I remember this. I'll share this one thing with you before we go. Right, I was teaching this group of a mixed group of people, and one of them in the room was 17, and I wasn't thinking she was taking anything on board, and we had this new guy come along this one day, and he said, "Oh, what is the precise date of this, and what is the precise date of that?" And I said, and before I could say anything, this girl stood up in the room and she said, "We don't need precise dates of what's going on in history. It's what actually the events happened in history are the more important.
Yes.
Those are the bits of evidence that we're looking at." And I just thought, that's something.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. So, it's really good that people pick up something. And if I'd prefer people picking up something rather than nothing. And if they pick up one thing, then that's more than anything.
Yeah.
As I've got.
I'm still. I mean, it's such a wide subject. One can only feel, a tiny bit.
Mm.
I've been coming for about 5 years or something, but nevertheless, it's changed I don't know. Sometimes it affects how you see life today. It's a sort of a.
Yeah.
I can't quite explain it, but it does seem to clarify things.
Yeah.
That are going on all around you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I got to interrupt because I do a little video log every day now, and yesterday I put on there. I said it's very cold now. We're still getting cold nights, right? This is really unusual for where I live, right? And that's all I was saying, right? And then I said how people would have reacted in the medieval period, knowing that they should have planted their crops by now, and it's still cold at night. And then people were saying, "Oh, you're one of these climate blooming freaks. You're this and you're that." And I just said, "Hang on a minute, hold your horses." I was making the point of how difficult it would be people in the past having cold conditions when they're having to plant crops. That was what I was saying. I wasn't actually making a political statement or a climatic statement, but that's how I think, right?
Mm.
It's not how they think, and that's the difference.
I've been very grateful, really, to this course. Although I've only got a smattering, really, what there is. But I do think it has changed my way of looking at life and makes things easier. And I would thank you, Carl, because I don't know a lot still, but I'm feeling, it's helpful.
You do know a lot, and a lot more than you did, so that's the main thing.
Yeah. Well, I was talking, funnily enough, I was talking with a group, I've moved house into this sheltered accommodation and we do things together. Yeah. And I forget how it comes up, but I felt somebody was talking about something and I could remember quite a bit. I was talking to them and saying about what happened, and I felt I could somehow remember quite enough to say something that was sensible, So, yes. Anyway, Janice and I swapped a couple of books.
We did. Mm-hmm.
which made us realise we were sort of interested both.
Yeah.
Good. Particularly books with my name on the cover. That really helps. You know him? Yeah, I know him. Yeah, you know him? Yeah, I'm. Yeah, I know. Oh, you know him? All right, I go to his classes. That's good. Brilliant.
Right. Yeah.
I'm glad to be back.
Good to have you back, and good to have you back with your mate, and that's good. You're all our mates anyway. And actually, Janice, right? I might be. The missus is saying that she wants to come up and collect the books off Margaret and stuff. So we might be coming up sometime this year.
Oh right, yeah.
Yes, Margaret's
So-
got the library in her garage. You might not have known that. Yes.
Yeah, we'll leave that one there. Yeah, that's true. That's true. And yeah, they're apparently all on shelves. I don't know what they should do with them, but we got to collect it. But so we will be coming up for. We'll probably do it on a day that nobody can be available on that Tuesday. But that's your own bloody fault, you know. Anyway, great. Okay then. Nice to meet you, Janice. I really look forward
Nice to meet
meeting
you.
next week.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you, and see you next week, Anne, as well.
Yeah.
See you next week.
Yes.
Bye then.
Bye-bye.
Night,
then.
night,
Bye,
Janice.
bye,
And night,
bye.
Anne. Take care. And thanks for everything and your support. Take care. And good to have somebody new on board. There's a lot of pressure on you.
Bye then.
Night, night. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Night, night. Bye. Right. So, I'm going to go over to another live now, and I've got to close down this recording. And so I'm going to close down this recording now. And this is my my Tuesday YouTube Zoom recording for Archaeology Cymru, and we're going to shut down that live because I got these two guys that we're going to have a chat with now, Tom and Jason. So I'm going to close down this. I'm going to close down this live now so we can get on to a private Zoom call. So you would go on 3, 2, 1, and do you know what? Live. That's off live. So anyway, thanks for watching on YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Diolch yn fawr i chi, gwelwch chi eto ymor y chyd, and gwelwch chi eto on y dydd mawr nesa, wythnos nesa. Diolch yn fawr i chi. And that's